The transport shuttle landed on Station Helix 7 with a soft hum. The doors opened and 47 new recruits stepped out onto the metal floor of the Galactic Military Academy. They came from different worlds and different species. Some were tall with scales covering their bodies. Some had 4 arms. Some moved on legs that bent the wrong way. But all of them had one thing in common. They wanted to become soldiers. Among them was a human girl named Park. She was 23 years old and small compared to most humans. Her dark hair was cut short close to her head. She carried only a small bag and with her transfer papers. She walked slowly, her eyes looking at everything but showing nothing. No excitement, no fear, no emotion at all. Senior instructor watched the new recruits from the observation deck above. He was a species known for their size and strength. His body was covered in blue and green scales that changed color with his mood. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. For 30 years, he had trained soldiers at this academy. He had seen every type of recruit from every corner of the galaxy. He looked at his and scrolled through the files of the new arrivals. When he reached Park's file, he stopped and read it carefully. Her academic scores were average, nothing special. Her physical tests were acceptable but not impressive. The psychological evaluation caught his attention. It said she had minimal verbal communication and possible social adaptation difficulties. Made a sound of disgust. He turned to his colleague, instructor, who stood beside him. Was a species with pale skin and large black eyes. They were famous for their ability to read minds and communicate through telepathy. Another human charity case said, "Earth must be desperate if they send us their broken ones." Looked down at the human girl. She stood apart from the other recruits. She did not talk to anyone. She did not look around with curiosity like the others did. She simply waited. "Perhaps she is just shy," suggested. Laughed, "Shy soldiers die fast. If she cannot speak, she cannot lead. If she cannot lead, she is useless to us." The orientation ceremony took place in the main hall of the academy. It was a huge room with high ceilings and walls covered with the flags of 100 different worlds. The recruits sat in rows of seats, while the instructor stood on a raised platform at the front. Stepped forward and looked at the new class. His scales shifted to a deep purple color, which meant he was serious. "You are here because you believe you are worthy," he said in a loud voice. "You are wrong. You are nothing. You have proven nothing. This academy will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Many of you will fail. Many of you will quit. Some of you will die during training. Only the strong will remain." He paused and let his words settle over the room. "You will speak when spoken to. You will follow every order without question. Weakness is not accepted here. It is removed. Do you understand?" "Yes, senior instructor," the recruits shouted together. All except one. Park sat in the back row. Her lips did not move. Her expression did not change. She simply looked at with those empty eyes. Noticed her silence. He reached out with his telepathic abilities trying to read her thoughts, but he found nothing. Her mind was like a wall made of stone. He could not get through. "Strange," he whispered too. "I cannot read her mind. There are barriers I have never seen before." Looked at the human girl. His scales turned orange with irritation. Perhaps she has nothing worth reading. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "Any questions?" Several recruits raised their hands. A warrior asked about the training schedule. A scout asked about ranking systems. A strategist asked about combat simulations. Did not raise her hand. She did not speak. She did not move. Pointed at her. "You, human, do you have a question?" Every head in the room turned to look at her. "No," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "No what?" "No, senior instructor." Walked down from the platform and moved through the rows of seats until he stood in front of her. He towered over her small frame. His 4 arms crossed over his chest. "What is your name, recruit?" "Park." "Where are you from?" Earth. What is your combat specialization? Infantry. Waited for her to say more. She did not. Elaborate, he commanded. Silence. The other recruits shifted in their seats. Some of them smiled. Others looked uncomfortable. No one had ever seen a recruit refuse to answer an instructor before. Scales turned bright red with anger. He leaned down until his face was close to hers. When I tell you to speak, you speak. When I ask a question, you answer. Do you understand me, human? Looked at him without fear. Yes, senior instructor. Then answer my question. What is your combat specialization? Infantry, she repeated. That is not an answer. That is a word. Tell me what you can do. Tell me why Earth sent you here. Tell me something that makes you worth my time. The room was completely silent. Everyone waited for her response. Took a breath. I follow orders, I complete missions, I survive. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had found something amusing and pathetic at the same time. She follows orders, he announced to the room. She completes missions. She survives. What incredible skills. Truly, humanity has sent us their finest warrior. Laughter spread through the hall. The other recruits pointed at and whispered to each other. Even some of the instructors smiled. Did not react. Her face remained calm. Her eyes remained empty. She sat perfectly still while the laughter washed over her like water over stone. Watched her carefully. Something about her response bothered him. She had not said she was strong. She had not said she was fast or smart or skilled. She had said she survives. In his experience, only people who had faced death many times spoke like that. But he pushed the thought aside. She was just a human girl with average scores and no social skills. There was nothing special about her. He was wrong. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Every day brought new training exercises, new tests, and new challenges. The recruits woke before sunrise and worked until their bodies screamed for rest. They learned combat techniques from a dozen different worlds. They studied tactics and strategy. They pushed themselves beyond their limits. Park did everything that was asked of her. She completed every exercise. She passed every test, but she never stood out. She was never the fastest runner or the strongest fighter. She never raised her hand to answer questions. She never offered suggestions during tactical discussions. She simply did what was required and nothing more. The instructors noticed, and they did not like it. Assigned her the worst duties. While other recruits practiced advanced combat techniques, cleaned weapons and equipment. While others slept, she stood guard duty in the cold corridors of the station. While others ate hot meals in the dining hall, she worked in the sanitation units. She never complained. She never asked why. She simply did the work and moved on to the next task. This made even angrier. She is mocking us, he told one evening. She refuses to break. She refuses to show emotion. It is disrespectful. Shook his head. I have tried to read her mind many times. There is nothing there but walls. Her thoughts are hidden behind barriers I cannot penetrate. Either she has received advanced mental training or her mind is simply empty. Then she is useless either way, decided. The other recruits quickly learned that was an easy target. If they wanted to impress the instructors, they only had to compare themselves to her. If they wanted to feel better about their own failures, they could look at the silent human girl who never fought back. A recruit named was the worst. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin and arms like tree trunks. He enjoyed pushing in the corridors when no one was watching. He knocked her food tray from her hands in the dining hall. He made jokes about humans being the weakest species in the galaxy. Never responded. She picked up her food and found another seat. She stepped aside when he pushed her. She looked at him with those empty eyes and said nothing. One person tried to help her. His name was. He was another human from the Korean Peninsula Federation on Earth. He was tall and athletic, with a quick smile and an easy way of talking to people. He had served 2 years in Earth's orbital defense force before coming to the academy. He found sitting alone in the dining hall one evening. Her tray held simple food that she ate slowly and mechanically. He sat down across from her without asking permission. "You should speak up more," he said. "The instructors think you are weak. The other recruits think you are an easy target." Looked at him, her face showed nothing. "Does it matter what they think?" "Of course it matters. Your ranking depends on how they see you. Good rankings mean good assignments after graduation. Bad rankings mean you end up cleaning latrines on some forgotten outpost for the rest of your career." She returned her attention to her food. "I am not here for rankings." Frowned. "Then why are you here?" No answer. He leaned forward. "Look, I know humans have to stick together out here. We are surrounded by species that think we are primitive and weak. We have to prove them wrong. But we cannot do that if you keep acting like a ghost." Finished her meal and stood up. "Thank you for your concern." She walked away before he could say anything else. Watched her go. Something about her bothered him. He had served with many soldiers during his time in the defense force. He knew how veterans moved and how they carried themselves. There was an economy of motion that came from experience. Every movement was precise and efficient. Nothing was wasted. Moved like that. But she was 23 years old. When could she have gained that kind of experience? During week 4, decided to humiliate her publicly. The training exercise that day involved tactical simulations. Teams of recruits would compete against each other in a virtual battlefield. The team leader had to devise a strategy and guide their squad to victory. Smiled when he made the announcement. "Recruit Park will serve as team leader for the red team." Whispers spread through the room. Everyone knew what this meant, was setting her up to fail. Walked to the front of the room and looked at the holographic display. It showed a valley surrounded by mountains. The objective was a small building at the far end. Enemy positions were marked in blue. Her team's starting position was marked in red. "Explain your strategy," commanded. 46 pairs of eyes watched her. Studied the map for exactly 4 seconds. Standard flanking maneuver. Team Alpha and Team Beta advance on the eastern ridge. Team Gamma holds the valley entrance. Team Delta circles behind the enemy position through the western forest. Laughed. "That is it. A child could devise that plan. There is nothing creative or intelligent about it. You are simply repeating basic tactics from the first week of training." "Then a child would succeed," replied. "The objective is the target, not the plan." The room went silent. No one had ever spoken back to like that. His scales turned dark purple with rage. "Very well. Run your simple plan. And when you fail, we will discuss what happens to leaders who waste their team's potential." The simulation began. His voice came through the communication system. It was calm and steady. She gave orders without hesitation. She adjusted positions based on enemy movements. She anticipated problems before they happened. "Alpha team, hold position. Enemy patrol approaching from the north. Wait for them to pass." "Gamma team, enemy reinforcements incoming. Fall back to secondary position." "Beta team, now, move fast. You have 40 seconds before the next patrol." Her team members were surprised. They had expected her to freeze under pressure. Instead, she commanded them like she had done this 1,000 times before. The simulation ended after 41 minutes. Red team victory, 0 casualties. The room was silent, even had nothing to say. Removed her headset and returned to her seat without a word. Her expression had not changed. She did not celebrate. She did not acknowledge her success. It was as if winning meant nothing to her. Watched from across the room, he was beginning to understand something about Park. She was not weak. She was not broken. She was something else entirely. He just did not know what. Instructor could not sleep. The human girl troubled him in ways he could not explain. Every recruit at the Galactic Military Academy had a complete service record. The files contained everything about them: where they had served, what missions they had completed, what awards they had received, what mistakes they had made. This information helped the instructors understand each recruit and train them properly. Park's file was different. Sat in his private office late at night and opened her record on his. He had read it before, but something made him look again. The basic information was there: her name, her age, her transfer authorization from Earth's military command. But where her operational history should have been, there was only a single line of text. Operational history, classified, clearance level Omega required. Stared at those words for a long time. Omega clearance was the highest level of security in the Galactic Confederation. It was reserved for information that could destabilize governments or start wars if it became public. In his 40 years of service, had never seen Omega clearance attached to a junior recruit. He walked to his quarters and showed him the file. "This must be an error," said. "Perhaps the data was corrupted during her transfer from Earth." Looked at the screen with narrowed eyes. His scales shifted through several colors as he thought. Or perhaps there is something about this human that we do not know. Should we investigate? Yes, submit a formal inquiry to Earth's military liaison. Request clarification on her background. The inquiry was sent that night. Expected to wait weeks for a response. Bureaucracy moved slowly, especially between different worlds and different military organizations. The response arrived in 6 hours. Request DENIED. Recruit Park's operational history remains classified under Article 7 of the Galactic Defense Compact. Further inquiries will be logged and reported to Central Command. Read the message 3 times. Article 7 covered only one type of operation: black-level engagements, missions so secret that their existence was by every government involved, missions where the soldiers were expected to die and their names would never be remembered. "What has this girl done?" whispered. Meanwhile, continued her routine as if nothing had changed. She woke early, she trained, she completed her duties, she ate alone, she spoke only when required. But now the instructors watched her differently. They noticed how she moved through the training halls. Every step was precise, every motion was efficient. There was no wasted energy in anything she did. She moved like water flowing around obstacles, smooth, natural, inevitable. They noticed how she observed other recruits during combat training. Her eyes tracked their movements with perfect focus. She saw their weaknesses before they revealed them. She understood their patterns before they knew they had patterns. They noticed that she slept only 4 hours each night. The rest of the time she spent in the station's library. She read battle reports from wars that had ended centuries ago. She studied tactics from species that no longer existed. She absorbed information like a sponge absorbing water. Notice these things too. He followed her to the library one night and found her reading about the Shadow Wars. There had been a mysterious species known for their deadly combat techniques. They had been wiped out during a genocide 30 years ago. Their fighting methods had died with them. "Why are you reading about the?" asked. Did not look up from her. History teaches lessons that the present forgets. They are gone, their techniques are lost. Some things survive even when their creators do not. Sat down across from her. You are not like other recruits. You know things that you should not know. You move in ways that take years to learn. Who are you really? Finally looked at him. Her eyes were dark and deep, like wells that had no bottom. "I am just a soldier." Soldiers have stories, they have records, they have histories that can be read in files. Your file is blank. Perhaps my story is not finished yet. She returned to her reading. The conversation was over. 2 weeks later, decided to test her himself. The hand-to-hand combat training was scheduled for the afternoon. Recruits would practice defensive techniques against different species. The instructors usually demonstrated the attacks while the recruits learned to defend. Recruit Park announced, "Step forward. You will demonstrate defensive techniques against an opponent." The other recruits exchanged glances. Everyone knew what this meant. Was going to fight her personally. Were 3 times the size of humans. They had 4 arms and incredible strength. Their fighting style was considered almost impossible to counter without years of specialized training. Walked onto the training mat without hesitation. She stood before and waited. His scales turned green with amusement. Try to survive, little human. He attacked. His first strike was fast and powerful. His upper right arm swept toward her head while his lower left arm grabbed for her waist. It was a standard opening move designed to overwhelm smaller opponents. Was not there. She moved like smoke. Her body twisted away from both attacks at the same time. Her hand touched his extended arm lightly, and suddenly his balance was gone. He stumbled forward. Recovered quickly. His scales turned orange with surprise. He attacked again, faster this time. All 4 arms moved in a complex pattern designed to trap and crush. Flowed through his attacks like wind through branches. She was never where he expected her to be. Her movements were strange and unfamiliar. He did not recognize the fighting style. 22 seconds after the fight began was on his back. His knee pressed against his throat. One of his arms was pinned at an angle that sent pain shooting through his shoulder. If she applied more pressure, the joint would break. The training hall was silent. No one moved, no one breathed. Released him and stepped back. She stood quietly, waiting for his next command. Rose slowly. His scales flickered through a dozen colors. Shock, pain, confusion, and something new, something he had not felt in many years. Fear. Where he breathed, "Did you learn to fight like that?" Looked at him with those empty, ancient eyes. "Earth," she said. That night sent a second inquiry to Earth's military command. This time, he demanded answers. He used his authority as a senior instructor and his connections from 30 years of service. The response came faster than before. A ship was already on its way. The midterm combat trial was the most important test at the academy. Every recruit had to prove themselves in a simulated assault on a heavily defended position. The target was protected by automated weapons, holographic enemies, and traps designed to test every skill the recruits had learned. Teams of 4 usually completed the trial in about 90 minutes. The academy record was 47 minutes, set by a squad 12 years ago. Due to a scheduling problem, Park was assigned to run the trial alone. When saw the schedule, he immediately went to, "This is not fair. No recruit can complete the trial solo. We should postpone her test until we can assign her a team." Smiled. His scales were a calm blue, which meant he had made up his mind. Let her attempt it. She has shown us nothing but silence and simple tactics. This will be the proof we need that she does not belong here. But what if she will fail, interrupted. And when she fails, I will have justification to remove her from this program. The human has made fools of us for too long. It ends today. Received her assignment that morning. She read the once and nodded. "Do you have any questions?" the administrative officer asked. "No." "Do you understand that you will be attempting this trial without team support?" "Yes." "Do you wish to request a postponement?" "No." "Very well. Report to Training Zone 7 at 600 hours. Was at the entrance to the training zone exactly on time. She wore standard combat gear and carried only the basic weapons provided to all recruits: a pulse pistol, a combat knife, 3 grenades. The instructors gathered in the observation room above the training zone. They could watch the entire trial through cameras and sensors embedded throughout the course. stood at the front, his arms crossed over his chest. "Begin the simulation." The lights in the training zone changed to red. The automated systems activated. Holographic enemies materialized at their programmed positions. The clock started counting. Entered the zone. For the first 30 seconds, she did nothing. She stood perfectly still just inside the entrance, her eyes moving slowly across the space before her. She was studying the layout, memorizing positions, calculating angles. Then she moved. The instructors had expected her to be cautious. They expected her to take cover and advance slowly. They expected mistakes and hesitation. What they saw was something else entirely. Flowed through the like a shadow. She did not run. She did not hide. She moved with a certainty that seemed impossible. Every step took her exactly where she needed to be. Every turn happened exactly when it needed to happen. The first enemy hologram appeared on her right. Before its weapon could target her, she had already fired. The hologram dissolved. She did not slow down. A turret activated ahead of her. Instead of finding cover, she ran directly toward it. At the last moment, she dropped into a slide. The turret's shots passed over her head. Her knife was in her hand. She was past the turret before it could adjust. A single cut disabled its power supply. The instructors watched in silence. "That is shadow striking," whispered. His voice was filled with disbelief. "That combat technique died with their species. There are no living practitioners." She shifted, another instructor said. "Watch. She moves like a now, and now like a she knows fighting styles from a dozen different worlds." How is that possible? No one had an answer. Continued through the course. Every obstacle fell before her. Every enemy was defeated before it could become a threat. She used her grenades with perfect precision, clearing entire rooms with single throws. Her pistol never missed. Her knife found weak points that should have been hidden. At one point, she faced 3 holographic soldiers at the same time. They were programmed to work as a team, covering each other and coordinating their attacks. She killed all 3 in 4 seconds. The clock showed 25 minutes when she reached the final objective. She entered the target building, disabled the last defender, and touched the completion marker. "Simulation complete," the computer announced. Time 25 minutes 31 seconds. Casualties 0. The observation room was silent. Scales had turned white. In body language, white meant shock so profound that the mind could not process what it had witnessed. "That is not possible," someone said. "We all saw it," replied. "Whatever she is not an ordinary recruit." Exited the training zone and returned her equipment to the armory. She did not ask about her results. She did not seek out the instructors for feedback. She simply walked back to her quarters as if nothing unusual had happened. That evening, sent his third and final inquiry to Earth's military command. This time, he did not ask questions. He demanded a full briefing, or he would report the situation to the Galactic Military Council. The response arrived the next morning. It was not a message. Admiral Bai arrived on Station Helix 7 aboard a military transport. She was an elderly human woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. The medals on her uniform represented 50 years of service and more battles than most soldiers could imagine. She met with in a private conference room. No records were made of their conversation. "You wanted answers about Recruit Park," the Admiral said. "I am here to provide them. But first, you must understand something. What I tell you cannot leave this room. If it does, you will be arrested and tried for treason against the Galactic Confederation." Nodded, his scales had settled into a neutral gray. "I understand." The Admiral activated a small device on the table. It would block all recording equipment and prevent anyone from overhearing their conversation. "Park was never part of Earth's regular military," she began. "She was recruited at age 15 by a unit called the Quiet Division. You have never heard of it because it does not officially exist. What do? They handle problems that no one else can handle, missions where the chance of survival is nearly zero, operations against enemies that could destroy entire worlds if they were not stopped. The soldiers in this unit are selected for one reason. They do not break. They do not surrender. They do not stop until the mission is complete or they are dead. Felt his scales shifting through colors he could not control, and Park was one of these soldiers. She was their best. The Admiral told him everything. At 16, had infiltrated a hidden colony of survivors. She spent 6 months among them, learning their ways, earning their trust. When they revealed their plan to release a biological weapon that would kill billions, she stopped them alone. She learned their fighting techniques because she had to become one of them to destroy them. At 17, she was part of a squad sent to investigate a distress signal from a human colony on a distant world. They found the colonists slaughtered by an unknown enemy. Her entire squad was killed during the mission. She was the only survivor. She walked for 3 weeks through hostile territory to reach an extraction point, carrying the data that would help humanity prepare for the threat. At 19, a rogue artificial intelligence took control of 3 orbital defense stations. It threatened to fire on populated planets unless its demands were met. Was inserted into the first station alone. She destroyed all 3 AIs in 72 hours. 12 million lives were saved. Listened to story after story. Each one was worse than the last. Each one showed a young woman who had faced horrors that would break most soldiers. Her psychological evaluation says she has trouble communicating, said. Now I understand why. She watched every friend she ever made die, the Admiral replied. She has been wounded so many times that her body is more scar tissue than original flesh. She carries memories that would drive most people insane. Her silence is not weakness. It is the only way she can survive. Why is she here? Why send her to a training academy? Because she asked to come. She is tired of killing. She wants to teach instead. She wants to help young soldiers survive so they do not end up like her, but she refused any special treatment. She wanted to earn her place like anyone else. Was silent for a long moment. We have treated her very badly, he finally said. Yes, the Admiral agreed, you have. Now you must decide what you will do about it. The morning after Admiral's visit called an assembly in the main training hall. All recruits and instructors were required to attend. No one knew why. Stood on the raised platform at the front of the room. His scales were a deep blue color that the recruits had never seen before. It was the color of respect. There will be changes to our training program, he announced. Effective immediately, Recruit Park has been promoted to the rank of Auxiliary Instructor. She will teach advanced survival tactics and close-quarters combat. Whispers spread through the hall. The recruits looked at each other in confusion. The silent human girl who cleaned equipment and stood guard duty was now an instructor. The massive who had bullied for weeks laughed out loud. This is a joke, yes. The mute human girl will teach us how to fight. What will she do? Stare at us until we fall down. No one else laughed. Scales shifted to red. Recruit, you will report to sanitation duty for the next 30 days. Perhaps cleaning waste systems will teach you respect. But senior instructor. 60 days. His mouth closed. He lowered his eyes and said nothing more. Stood at the side of the hall throughout the announcement. Her expression had not changed. She did not look proud or satisfied. She simply waited for whatever came next. After the assembly, found her in the corridor outside. So he said, not here for rankings after all. The smallest hint of something appeared on her face, not quite a smile but close. I told you. You did not tell me that you are basically a living legend. The instructors look at you like you might explode at any moment. Would it have changed anything if you knew? Thought about it, probably would have sat somewhere else at meals. This time she did smile. It was brief and fragile like a flower blooming in winter, but it was real. In the weeks that followed, began to teach. Her classes were different from anything the academy had seen before. She did not lecture about theories or show holographic demonstrations. She put her students into situations and made them solve problems with their bodies and minds. Combat is not about strength, she told a group of recruits who struggled with defensive formations. It is not about speed or skill. It is about surviving long enough to matter. The strong die just as easily as the weak if they are in the wrong place at the wrong time. Your job is to never be in the wrong place. She taught them how to read a battlefield in seconds, how to identify threats before they became deadly, how to move through danger without being touched by it. She taught them how to fight with weapons and without, how to use the environment as both shield and sword, how to turn an enemy's strength into weakness. She taught them how to stay calm when everything was chaos, how to think clearly when their bodies screamed with fear, how to keep moving when every instinct told them to stop. The recruits who trained under her improved faster than anyone expected. They won combat simulations against teams that should have defeated them easily. They survived training exercises that had broken previous classes. They became better soldiers in weeks than most became in years. And slowly, they began to understand the woman who taught them. They noticed that she never raised her voice. She never insulted them or made them feel stupid for failing. When they made mistakes, she simply showed them the correct way and asked them to try again. They noticed that she remembered every name. She learned their strengths and weaknesses. She pushed each of them exactly hard enough to grow without breaking. They noticed the scars on her arms when her sleeves shifted during demonstrations. They saw the way she sometimes paused and looked into the distance, as if seeing something that no one else could see. They recognized the weight she carried, even if they did not know its source. One evening came to observe one of her classes. He stood in the back of the training hall and watched her work with a group of recruits on hand-to-hand combat. When the class ended, he approached her. "You could have revealed your record at any time," he said quietly. "Why did you endure our mockery, our dismissal? Why did you let us treat you so badly?" Considered the question for a long moment. "When I was young, I thought silence was weakness. I believed I had to prove myself with words and displays of strength. I fought against anyone who doubted me. I argued with anyone who questioned me." She looked at him with those deep, ancient eyes. "Then I learned something. The loudest voices on the battlefield are usually the first to fall silent. The soldiers who boast about their skills are usually the first to die. Real strength does not need to announce itself. It just exists." Nodded slowly, he finally understood. Park's silence was not emptiness. It was not fear or weakness. It was the silence of someone who had nothing left to prove. She had faced death so many times that she no longer needed to convince others of her worth. She knew who she was. That was enough. "I owe you an apology," said. "The instructors ridiculed your silence. We were wrong." "You were not wrong to test me. That is your duty. You were only wrong to assume that silence meant I had nothing to say. And now you speak more than you did before. Now I have something worth speaking for." She looked across the training hall at her students. They were practicing the techniques she had taught them. They were laughing and helping each other. They were becoming better soldiers and better people. "For years I only knew how to destroy," said. "Every mission was about killing enemies and surviving long enough to kill more. I was good at it, too good, but destruction leaves you hollow. There is no meaning in it." What changed? "I watched too many young soldiers die because no one taught them properly. They had courage but not skills. They had strength but not wisdom. They went into battle believing they were ready and discovered too late that they were not." Her voice was soft but steady. "I cannot bring back the ones I lost, but I can help the ones who come after them. Every soldier I train is a life that might be saved. Every lesson I teach is a death that might be prevented. That is worth speaking for." Scales turned to a warm gold color. In body language, gold meant admiration. "The instructors ridiculed your silence," he repeated, "but your combat history spoke louder than any words we could have heard." Looked at him. For the first time, something like peace appeared in her eyes. "History is just stories we tell about the past. What matters is what we do next." She returned to her students, watched her go. He thought about all the recruits who had passed through the academy over the years, the loud ones who bragged about their abilities, the confident ones who believed they were destined for greatness, the ambitious ones who would do anything to climb higher. And then he thought about the quiet human girl who had arrived with nothing but a small bag and a sealed file, the girl who endured mockery without complaint, the girl who proved her worth through actions instead of words. In 30 years of training, soldiers had never met anyone like her. He suspected he never would again. Across the training hall, demonstrated a defensive technique to a young recruit. Her movements were patient and precise. Her voice was calm and encouraging. When the recruit succeeded, she nodded with quiet approval. The other recruits gathered around, eager to learn from the silent teacher who had survived impossible odds and emerged with her humanity intact. They did not know all the details of her past. They did not need to. They saw the truth in the way she moved, the way she taught, the way she treated them with respect and patience. Her combat history had spoken. Now she was writing a new story, one lesson at a time, one student at a time, one small act of hope in a galaxy that often seemed filled with darkness. And for the first time in many years, Park was not just surviving. She was alive.